it's not to say they don't have the audience. The audience is there. We seen that. The audience is definitely there. It's just, and I mentioned that we talked about this in the past. It's just we're entertaining too dang long. We want to laugh. We want to have comedy too long in the stories that matter, like you mentioned, with the niches that can actually streamline and to reach people in a depth of what really matters does not, and we fail to do so. So that's, I'm so happy that you mentioned the chicken noodle soup. So
Whoa, hey, welcome back, everybody. Because obviously we walked right into Atlanta having a full-on conversation with herself.
that gets
And
to me, man.
I know I got you. But let's get the intro in. Okay, welcome back to the Financial Griot, where three millennials, Haitian American by descent, first generation, we talk about our financial stories, our purpose, our reason, our raison d'être, as the French would call it. And we try to take the topics of the day, try to take our ideas, and try to formulate what really matters to our community, to ourselves, and to our families. And ultimately, we hope that it's translates to something that you can use and ideas that you can process through. And we do welcome that you share, like, subscribe, and tell a friend and have those conversations in your household. And even if you have an ideas for us, and even if you want to even join us on a podcast one day as a guest, please feel free to reach out to us. We do have a Gmail. We got a Gmail now.
Whoa.
like we could do that. Luther, we're calling you out by your real
Calling
name.
you out.
Like we do have an email, our buddy Luther and Korean podcast. The email is the Financial Griot at gmail.com. I actually go by the neighborhood finance guy, so sometimes I kind of like mix those names up together
Interchangeably.
So either way, we were having a conversation about what is the purpose of the Financial Griot, which we haven't really discussed in full detail. Sometimes we kind of jumped into it with everybody. We kind of give you an intro, we give our background about who we are, but we're going to start extending this, especially as we're thinking about 2022, 2023 and beyond. What is the value of this podcast and where can it go? And I'm going to let Lovely introduce herself because Alana already did her rant.
I said my rant.
Oh man. Hey guys, this is Lovely. I'm excited to have you guys as usual. And today's episode is going to be really good. I think it's going to be meaningful to give context to why we're even having these conversations.
So I'm going to start off by saying that for me, the Financial Griot itself is akin to chicken soup for the soul. Like, and some people don't necessarily know that entire book genre, that movement that happened in the 90s. Everybody quote unquote was trying to push to get gotta go read these books because that's all we had. We didn't have Facebook at the time, so this was like this is where we got all our shade room stuff, maybe from the chicken book.
Shade room? Nah,
it wasn't shady. It wasn't shady.
It's like
but we got
strangers.
Yeah, but we got like that voyeurism that we wanted to, and I think that's what Instagram and social media is all about too. Is voyeurism, the idea that we get to share in other people's stories that we have no idea about. And sometimes those stories might be uplifting. Some of them were very much like emotional, very impactful stuff. So you'd able to actually get into that. And they made an entire line. First, they did the chicken soup for the soul, and then they did one for teens. I know they did one for young adults.
Couples,
they went in there,
adults,
for couples, yeah.
What happened?
They made an entire
that?
brand. It's probably still around in a lot of ways, shapes, and forms. But part of what the Financial Griot is all about is sharing the stories to us, and I think that's where I remember when I created other things before that it failed because in truth, I want to have a library of information for our kids to look into and find out who we were and who we are. In that retrospect, I did help create the Haitian American and kind of build out that brand a bit. But ultimately, we saw a lot of jokes coming in, which is part of our culture, that we made fun of everything. It was fun. You get a lot of views, you get a lot of likes from that. A lot of people create entire industries off of that, making fun of our parents, our grandmothers, our fathers, and so on and so forth. Because, Haitian people have different cultures and norms that we follow and we understand. But ultimately, we failed at empathizing their story of who they are, who they were, what did they have to struggle through. What do they have to go through to move and give up of their own, soul and their own history, their memories, their friends, to leave a country that they knew about to go to a place that speak a whole different language in which they became the other. In Haiti itself, you do have class structure where there are, the colorism that exists in that class. However, everybody there was Black. you know, and summarily, we all looked at each other as black. There's very few often times that you run into like a white person. You're like, that you could clearly see that they're white. You had no animosity. You didn't care. It's just like, that's a white person that's randomly here. But ultimately, everybody was black. So imagine leaving that space and going to a place where you're basically a small percentage now. You go from 90% to maybe less than 5%, maybe less than 15% of the population. So ultimately, you become this insular group of people. You have your community, you have your kids, and then you try to teach your kids the ways that you know of. And then you have your kids rebelling in the ways that they're learning of in their own schools. So these are people that are really, these are real people. Like sometimes I laugh and sometimes I'm like, nah, it's not that funny anymore, because we're making fun of people that really didn't have a lot and that gave everything. I mean, by the virtue of everything to us. Work-life balance, they just knew work. In between life, they just worked. That's all it was. That was the balance for them. They never complained. They never argued about it. Like they complained in the sense of like, oh, if you needed money, that kind of thing, like where you need money from. But they didn't complain about the nature of work itself. They understood the necessity of work because it was feeding their families, it's feeding their homes. So they went to work without like this extra aggression towards whoever that was paying them, because they knew that they needed the job to make sure that their kids are, being fed and going to school. And that's who they are. And I think that's that's why I'm trying to see if we can incorporate more and more stories about who we are, the struggles we go through, and even the struggles we saw our parents go through, so we could share a truly holistic perspective of the Black experience, or the Black immigrant experience, or even the Black diaspora experience. Man, that was a lot of words.
It was. And you guys, in the beginning of the episode, kind of got a semi rant of it. Just piggyback what Lauren said. It's just too much of fun going on, too much of entertainment. And I'm just seeing more and more clear as I get older that we're not getting to the depthness and the vulnerabilities and the real struggle of it all. Like, this life is not easy. And we're depicting as though is this lifestyle coolness and this easiness that we have, not realizing the privilege, not realizing the opportunities that we have been granted from just being, Haitian American. Some of us are still, semi-immigrants status or however, right? We're not realizing that. And it gets to me to see that a platform or different platforms that have the audience are not depicting us in a holistic lens, and that what gets to me. So when he brought it up about sharing our stories and have other people outside from the co-host share their stories and their struggles or just their life experiences, I just love that idea, because 5 years, 3 years, 4 years down the line, someone else can listen to this like, oh, this is what they were doing, or this is how it's been, and to understand that they are not alone, right? They're just not alone. And I think that we can create that and have a space where all these, those stories are together collectively is amazing. Because 10, 15 years, 20 years down the line, if I want to give my niece or my children, like, hey, this is me when I was still popping out here, I'm not just this grunted parent, that gets on you all that. This is me in my 30s. This is me in my 20s. This is a struggle, and this is the vulnerability that you can hear in my voice, in my experience. So this is where I am into what's the word I'm looking for, to kind of take that and place it's almost like a capsule a little bit. And I just love that, like a digital capsule, like they can hear us, they can feel those feelings and understand, like, this is the life and this is how we got here. But we don't want you to struggle. We just want you to understand, to empathize our struggle, and to see that we want to provide the best opportunities for you as our children, as our family, as our friends.
Solid. I have nothing.
No, but we that's a good idea.
Like Lovely's, starstruck out here with the statement.
I'm already writing over here. Like this, that's a really good idea. Like that's something,
I'm gonna add to that. Like, for my wedding, I was like, well, I'm almost coming up on the 1 year anniversary right now. I was like, whoa, it was like
Was it after Thanksgiving?
it was right after Thanksgiving. Yeah,
Right now.
like
Damn,
so it's coming up.
Wow.
Yeah, it's almost be a year right now. So it's like 7 days from there or something like that. But ultimately, um, during that time, I actually came down, and usually around this time of year, I get this severe allergies, and sometimes it's more severe than others. And the night before, I actually came, or 2 days before that, I actually came down with the severe allergies situation. So I was actually really sick during my wedding. Like I was the entire time I was actually propped up by other friends that had like, you know, they did the holistic medicine. Like they propped me up. I'm not gonna say voodoo because
all the women like, you mentioned.
Yeah,
the women,
the ladies came in with a squad. They're like, we got this, we got that. We're gonna clear this guy up. We're gonna prop this guy up. We're gonna give him enough juice so he could go through the entire wedding, which I did. It was a beautiful wedding. On top of that, I would say that the moment before when I wrote my vows and I was reading through it and I was trying to figure it out, and I wasn't even able to speak. That's how bad my my allergies were. My best friend, who is he's done spoken word. I'm not gonna call him a spoken word artist. I think if he's an artist, he has to be practicing all the time. I think that's more like an active verb. But he's done spoken word poetry. He's written his own pieces, brilliant pieces, I might add. And he basically, you know, he read it. I told him he's gonna have to you know, do it for me, like do the speech for me, and he did, and he absorbed the concept. He read it. He did some grammatical errors, not to change the tone per se. Sometimes he tried to change stuff, but I've told him like this has to stick because that's what it is. But ultimately, he learned it in a matter of, I would say, 20 minutes. Not me, I'm not even speaking to the guy. He's reading the words, he's writing the words into my, you know, like I wrote the words into my notepad. He's understanding it for 20 minutes. He gets it and he performs it that evening, or when we got married, like, you know, when we were doing the vows, in pure brilliance. It reminds me of why it's so important that Black people understand that we are our storytellers. We are our living history, our memories, the way we our tone, our delivery, our emotions with how we do things matter. And it's not just how we type online, because I don't think that's the medium that really makes sense for us. Because part of who we are in our own DNA is the story itself, the spoken version of it. Is why it's called spoken word poetry. The idea of like rhyming through the information, understanding when to pause, letting it sit with people, letting the tears form up in people's eyes. You know,
that's how we created music.
Yeah, you create music. You create like the love. You express your true self through these words, and I think that's why, you know, this idea is so salient with us right now. The fact that we could bring in people to, you know, to speak these stories. Like Alainta has her story where, you know, hey, she went through the whole she bought a home and then she got fired from her job or something. Like, oh, she lost her job. She didn't get fired. That sounds messed up. So she lost her job. Yeah, she lost her job, which is a very powerful story. Maybe you're not necessarily, and that's the beautiful part of it, stories is like, maybe you're the writer of the story, right? And maybe you're not the person that could deliver the story in the same way.
Right.
So maybe there's somebody else that comes in and tells our story. I wrote the story about, you know, little Black boys who consider suicide. And maybe somebody else reads that story. Maybe I'm not the person to deliver it, and it's okay, because part of it is to ensure that the message gets delivered in the right way by the right person on the right time. And even stories that Lovely has, she's gone through her transition from South Florida, pushing from like when I met her, she was doing charitable giving and she had her own non-for-profit. She was getting accolades for that. She was struggling through her understanding about her position. Is she a nurse? Is she a nurse practitioner? Is she a business owner?
Tech.
Yeah, like a nurse tech. You know,
yes,
what does she do? Who am I? That kind of thing. And then she made this transition. And that in itself is an impactful story, because there's a lot of people now in South Florida that are struggling with those same exact ideas. Am I just this, right? Who am I? And to imagine us like 20 years ago, like, do you imagine yourself being in your own shoes right now? Do you imagine the Alainta traveling to Asia?
Yeah, with a white cat in my house? Nah.
Like no, to Asia, no, to the whole Asia trip.
Oh,
like,
do
you imagine? Yeah. Like, imagine like you're telling your the young version of stuff. Yeah, you're gonna be in Asia.
Stories
Asia, what?
that I have.
Like, you'll be like Asia, what? I don't need that. I'm going to New York, obviously. Like, it's a dumb idea. I'll be in New York or something, and everybody has these lofty ideas. And that if we look back, we've gone a very long way and we have a long way to go.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's beautiful. There's a lot of stories to tell, and this is why we're doing it. I'm Lovely. Like you being real quiet in the corner. Are you writing down? Are you breaking
She
down?
got the logo out. She like,
here's
hey,
yeah. Why are we seeing the logos? Like, we just see the 1159. Like, this is what it is.
like I'm rich. Y'all don't have to see me.
Yeah, it's like you just see the brand. That's why I am not the brand.
Let's hear my voice.
You guys are hilarious. No, I'm taking it in because I spoke a lot earlier today, but I'm taking it in because I think what we're essentially alluding to is that the books that we're reading of our lives have different chapters. And sometimes we're afraid to share the chapters that are about to come, that have happened, not realizing that it can help somebody start writing their story even more with more details and more color. And so for me, I was just intaking everything because this is not something that came out of just like a big strategic plan. It just organically happened. And it organically happened because we were in the environment to, kind of know each other. Like, I don't even still remember. I think I remember where I met Lawrence. It had to be BC because that's when he was president of UHSF. And I don't remember exactly how we connected, but I like reading his little Facebook posts. And I was just like, oh, I like this. This is his story. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted him on the podcast, because I felt like, you really need to be telling your story because this is so important and it's going to help so many people. And I've always been the person to try to my best to point people to stories because stories have evolved. When I felt as a kid that I didn't have enough, every time I read a book, it gave me possibilities. I was telling my mom at 14 that I'm going to build a hospital, I'm going to own an orphanage, and I'm going to have like this big business that does amazing things. I've been saying this since I was 14. Only reason why I can say that is like we weren't living a lavish life. Where did I get these ideas from? Reading. Stories. They exposed me to a different possibility. And now that I'm 30, going into this journey of the next level, I just want to be in that place of wonder of hearing the triumphs of our people. Like when you see Oprah and she's like, this person that does these killer communication interview style things, Oprah's story is so beautiful from the fact that in her genesis, though where she is right now doesn't even make sense. You won't even be able to trace it. Like, okay, she was raped. Dad didn't really want to be around her. It's low self-esteem. And now she's like a woman that her image is plastered everywhere. Like when you say Oprah, luxury comes, that's true luxury, okay? Bump TikTok luxury, Oprah, okay? Oprah money is different money. So to understand where her story came from, it inspired me to know that in this particular point of Oprah's life, she's 30 and she hasn't even made $1 million yet. She's still about to, in 31, 32, that's when she's going to get that Oprah show opportunity. And just to understand like where you are in life in retrospect to the people that you look up to and to aspire, you realize like, man, guys, how much more there's left in our tank if we just believe it. And the stories allows us to have hope and to dream and to become better. And so I encourage you not only to seek out our stories, but write your own story. Hear your friends. I think even sometimes your friends have amazing stories that you don't know about. You're just too busy, going to drinking parties that you don't even really know that your friend has this beautiful story inside of them. And because I used to be a hospice nurse, I sat down with people at the end of life. Nobody told me about their bank account, who they slept with. What they were concerned about was how their children would think about them. A lot of them also were living in deep regret of the opportunities that they didn't go after, the chances that they didn't take, the person that they really loved, but they didn't have the ability to be vulnerable, that they didn't say, I love you to. On their deathbed, people were analyzing and reflecting on their life. Everybody's always like, love, you're always doing some deep introspection. I realized that they were doing it at the end of life, but had they been doing it through life, life might have been different. And so taking the time to know the Financial Griot, the money story is a story that looks different for everybody. But in the essence of it, it's everybody's story. Because what is money? It's an exchange of value to be able to do things. Before there was like actual physical money, people used to barter each other's gifts. So maybe I had beans and you had rice. I'm gonna give you some rice, you can give me some beans. Money has always been about an exchange of experiences or needs to be met. I think when we say the financial griot, we're saying sit down with us so that you can exchange, so that we can learn from you and you can learn from us, so that our communities and the people around us can be better. So what's your story? Where are you going? What do you want to share? What do you want to tell your children? What letters do you want to write to them? What hope do you want to give to them? You do that by sharing who you are. Like Lauren said, we have been making fun when we haven't sat down to really even find out. Before our parents were our parents, there were people like us. There were young people with thoughts, emotions, difficulties, expressions, and yet we're going to let them pass away and not gain anything from them, but only the things that we think that they did wrong, not realizing the courage that they had, the grit they had to have, and the forgiveness that they might have to give for themselves because maybe they weren't the best people to you because they didn't even know who they were. And so now you can sit with that so that you can become your best version to give your children maybe what you didn't have. We need to sit down and go deeper because in depth, we'll find diamonds, we'll find gold, we'll find things that are almost invaluable. But if we only scratch the surface of, oh, pasoti, or, the parents always have something to say to judge you, that we're missing out on the world that they were living in and not being able to rise up to a different type of level of understanding. So our encouragement is not only to listen to ours, but ask your uncle, ask your grandfather. What was your hopes? What were the dreams that you didn't realize? What were the things you struggled with? How did you overcome? Who did you become? What hurts you? What ails you? So that this generation can have a better day and a brighter day. So those are my thoughts.
Drop mic. That was amazing.
Yeah, it's what we do out here, guys. So yet again, my name is Lawrence, the neighborhood finance guy. You can find me on the interwebs, either on my website or IG. And I post quite often, quite frequently. So feel free to respond to me, not in anger, because some of you guys got like toxic comments. Like, nah, everybody's pretty cool. And please like, share, and subscribe because we're doing a lot of great things. We are being recognized by other people, but we definitely want to be recognized by our own community. I think that's really what matters to me. I know we're going to get to a point where we're going to be on Forbes one day. We're going to do all this other stuff. But in truth, like if it's not reaching people like ourselves, Black, brown people that are struggling financially, then it's not reaching the people that really need it. And that to me, that's sad. And that's the only way we could fix that is together. That means you have to share, you have to comment, you have to review, you got to let us know what we're not doing well. You also have to let us know what we can do better. Or if you want to be part of this, if you want to be a guest or anything like that, you got to reach out and you got to extend the olive branch. We're not those type of people that you send us an email, we will respond. And if you reach out to us, we will talk back. We're not like, hey, we're not going to ignore you. We're not whatever. Like, you don't have to say, hey, do you know me from so-and-so? Like, nah, you're as good as everybody else to me at the very least. I'm not quite sure to Atlanta because she's out here on her YouTube. She's a she's a YouTube celebrity, but hey, for the rest of us that are struggling with like 5 likes, like we definitely appreciate every like. Thank you.
Yeah, man, that this is a great episode per usual on the Financial Griot, sharing stories and our introspection of our life. We do have an IG now. With the podcast, The Financial Griot. You can find us on there. Also find us on The Financial Griot on YouTube. So if you don't have the podcast platform or you are unable to access it, you can access YouTube as well. So we're on that platform as well as Facebook. Doreen is doing the job. Shout out to Doreen, doing the job on the back end. Lauren's wife, she is being a great contributor to the brand, and we really appreciate it. But yeah, subscribe and like the podcast, share it with a friend, whoever is your friends, and be able to just have these conversations, these discussions, because you want to stay around, but you also want to share the stories that actually matter. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. TFG, we out.
This is a great episode, guys. You guys can find me on Lovely Mardellis on Instagram, and I will definitely be more blogging and vlogging and all this other stuff because a whole part of storytelling. But as always, we haven't said this in a few episodes. Review the podcast on Apple, please. Just drop a review, 5-star it, write a little comments for us because it helps us. It helps other people find us. So we haven't asked for reviews in a while. So I'm going to just take the liberty of saying, stop right now. Go ahead, leave us a review wherever you're listening. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Financial Griot podcast, powered by the Wealth Builders Collective.